Welcome to the channel where all you gotta do is, well, fix this skid steer again. So this is carburetor off my Bobcat that I converted to a Duromax 35 horsepower. And it's been treating me pretty good for the last few months, not very long. And it won't start again. This time, I think it's my fault though, so nothing against Duromax. There is a bit of debris in the fuel system. Now, when I pulled the line off of here, it did have plenty of flow. Like there was plenty of gas coming through there with it not running. But it seems like the garbage that's in the, and there's like 3 filters in the system, right? There's a spin-on filter, and then 2 inline automotive low pressure filters. So, and the fuel is kind of cloudy looking by the time it gets to the second one, but I don't know, this would totally have worked in the Wisconsin engine, but apparently this one has some smaller orifices in it, and maybe it's got clogged up. I don't know. It definitely starts when I put a little fuel in the intake manifold, so it's definitely a fuel delivery problem. So I have a feeling this needle and seat's just plugged up, but we're fixing to find out. And maybe I just need to go to a, you know, a smaller mesh micron filter, you know, a 20 micron instead of 50 micron or something like that. So this does smell kind of like old gas, which I don't understand because this gas is not old. I mean, it might be a year, something like that, but it's not like 10 years or 5 years. But it definitely smells like it is. If you ever drained fuel out of a car that's been sitting for 20, 30 years, it's yeah. So this should be clear, and you can see that brownish tinge to it. That is inappropriate. So this is my bad. So this doesn't allow any fuel to get in until the engine starts up. So if that's stuck, that would do it. If that thing has got schmutz in there and the engine cranks up and doesn't start, it never opens this valve up. It has to like start with the fuel that's in the float bowl, and then once that happens, it opens this up. Or maybe when you start cranking it, I could put an oscilloscope on this and figure it out, but maybe when you start cranking it, it opens this up. And then when you stop cranking it, shut the thing off and let it sit for 3 months, this closes. And that might be stuck. So it does look kind of schmutzy in there, and none of this stuff was a problem. So I'm thinking it's that. Or maybe it's got a smell sensor and this stuff smells like it came out of a 42 Crosley that's been sitting in my grandfather's garage for 28 years, 6 months, 4 days, and 12 minutes. There's your problem. See that schmutz in there? So I don't know if this thing was opening up and just not getting any fluid through it, or it just wasn't opening up because there's rusty schmutzy stuff. And this appears to be just a solenoid valve. Like this is just a solenoid. So I think that's what it is. It just opens the fuel up when you start cranking it. Like this thing, it does take a bit when you push the start button. Like you push the start button, you have to hold it down for, I don't know, 4 or 5 seconds. So that's probably what it's doing. It's probably the first thing it does is click this open and let some fuel drain from the line into here. and then it just stays open when it's running, and then when you turn it off, just this little spring, right here, makes it close, and then you're back in business with, you know, fuel flow and whatnot. I must say that this thing is pretty easy to work on. Like, it took me 5 minutes to take this carburetor off of the skid steer, and that's in skid steer, which I had to take it apart a little bit. It's more difficult to take it apart since it's in the skid steer. The insulation in the skid steer is what it is. If it was in, you know, a stump grinder or something, it'd probably be easier to access everything. But even with that, it was a 5-minute job, and that includes, you know, wandering back, get tools, wandering back, get tools. So I'm gonna get some carburetor cleaner from up yonder, and I'm gonna clean this guy out, and we'll put this thing back together, and we'll be in business, I predict. All right, back with some tire inflator. I mean carburetor cleaner. Don't ever use it for tire inflator. That would be wrong. Inappropriate, wrong, all the things that they teach you in school. And then you promptly forget once you graduate. First filter's here. This is a spin-on diesel kind of water separator slash filter. And then I got this one, which has got, you know, there's some schmutz in there, but that's a filter's job. And then there's this one. So, but it does kind of look a bit brown in there. So I think what happened is it didn't get necessarily clogged up. It's just the rust, little bits of pieces of rust got in there. And that solenoid valve thing is made out of steel because it's a solenoid. Got to have some ferrous metal in there. So that just, the rust kind of coagulated on that and made it so it didn't move. Alright, so it's all drained out. I'm gonna put new filter on. Over there, new filter. I'm going to leave those two filters still there, and I'll fill it up with some clean gas, sucker pump it up into here, and we'll see what happens. Put this back on and drain all the fuel out of it, change the filter. This guy right here does the same thing. A few weeks back I fired this thing up. It'd been sitting for a month and a half. There were a bunch of rainstorms and stuff, so everything was muddy, so I didn't use it. Kind of got dried out, and I fired it up. It fired right up like that. Awesome. And then I got a couple of bucket loads of dirt from over there and dropped them over here. And then it was kind of like not running good, like spitting and farting, and so it was really cold. It was like, I don't know, mid-30s or something, cold for here. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just let it warm up a little bit. So I just let it idle for, you know, a few minutes, and then it just died. And didn't want to start back up again unless you put fuel down the carburetor. So anyway, fast forward, I've been busy doing tons of other things, but assumption was the carburetor got gummed up, so I pulled the carburetor off and took it all apart, and sure enough, there's tiny, like, oh, I don't know, less than 10,000ths of an inch holes in this carburetor, the jetting. So very different from the Wisconsin, where you could pretty much just run swamp gas in it and it would work. This thing is, you know, you got to keep the fuel clean. And I thought it was, because, you know, this is old. This is the fuel tank, this here. So this clacker pump sucks it out of the main tank over here and pumps it into this tank. Seemed like a genius idea. But then there's this hook in the filter, which I thought was rust, but so I put a second filter on there. But these aren't that. These are like 40 micron filters. I'm not sure what the beta coefficient is on these, but a 40 micron filter doesn't stop every 40 micron particle. So anyway, I put 2 of them on there, thinking that would make it better, and eventually I was going to get around to fixing it, so I bought one of these. Because if you watch some of my earlier videos, you would know that this fuel cell is a giant pile of junk. Oh good, those holes line up, that's nice. First time I checked that. So it had this thing on here, which I kind of modified it a little bit to make it so it would come back off, but my modification didn't really work. So not only did I have to pry this off with a screwdriver, bend the shit out of it, it's fine, but this thing, this is the nut plate that goes inside. It's split so you can get it in there. Anyway, these 4 bolts, just the nuts spun. I'm not even sure if they're nuts, but anyway, they just spun, and so I had to, you know, grind on a fuel tank. It's all good. Didn't set the forest on fire or anything, so that's nice. So I think what happened, this is my best educated guess, is this thing has a vent in it, which is above the level of where it would vent, but I plugged that vent up and put this vent on instead because I didn't want, when this thing rained, water would go in there. But I don't think this is sealed up, so I think this whole thing here is a leak path. Even though they got this vent on here, this is, that just puddles with rain and then gets inside the tank and then turns into a gelatinous mess, which that's exactly what was inside here. Really hard to photograph in there, but this is the fuel I drained out of it, and I don't know if you can see the gelatinous goo on the bottom. That's ethanol and water, probably. The stuff on top, the yellow stuff, that's gasoline. Let's see, I can emulsionize it by flinging it around like that. So I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Totally not Duramax's fault. Like, they designed a carburetor to meet emissions, so yeah, it's got small holes in it and it's more susceptible to plugging up. Not their fault. Totally what you have to do to make shit that pass emissions and get good efficiency and blah blah blah. So no big deal. Take carburetor, clean it up, whatever. Problem is this fucking thing. So I think I already recommend the world never ever buy this thing, but double down on don't buy this thing. So anyway, I'm gonna put this on there. Pretty sure this isn't gonna leak. Maybe I'll put like a sock over it or something, and maybe for the first 6 months or a year. Alright, this is 10 gallons. I mean, it's rare that I'm going to use more than 10 gallons in one operation, so it's probably fine. I just use this tank and see how that goes, and then if it's fine, then maybe I'll rejigger that tank, but maybe not. This is probably enough, but it'd be better if I had 22 gallons instead of 10, but, you know, whatever. So anyway, I'm gonna get this thing installed, get some clean fuel in there, put the carburetor back on, hopefully fire it up, and but of course, you know how things work in the real world. This thing came with a gasket and some nuts and bolts and little washer things, but no nut plate. So unless you can have a little small friend inside there to hold the nuts in, you need a nut plate. So I totally should have noticed when I ordered this filler that it didn't come with this nut plate. Well, we're still working on this thing. I think I got it mostly scienced out, but I do need to put some new fuel line on it. I'm not sure if I messed up the old fuel line because it was, you know, there was some water in the fuel. And so I brought it into the shop and tried to blow all the coagulant out of it. And I sprayed some carburetor cleaner down it and then blew it out with some compressed air. And after I did that, it was like decomposing rubber. I was like, now the one that's still on there, that comes from the tank inside the vehicle, that one seems fine. But the part that I blew out and used carburetor cleaner, I think it ruined the hose. So just to be safe, I got some plastic hose there, which is supposed to be fuel proof, but I don't know if it really is. But worst case scenario, it gets hard with rock. So, and I got some filters, a 40 micron filter, and then going into that a 10 micron filter. So I will put all that stuff up and put some new fuel in it, kind of flush the whole system out before I hook it up with the carburetor, which I already cleaned. So it should just fire up. So this is the problem. So I just took that's the hose that I didn't put spray carburetor cleaner in. Maybe you'll focus now. And I just stuck this inside there, and this stuff comes off. And this is Continental hose. It's not some cheap Chinese brand. It's supposed to be good for ethanol fuel. Well, 10% ethanol, whatever we use here. So anyway, that's the one that I'm not planning on using anymore. I'm just going to hook it back up to keep the fuel from leaking out. But that's why I'm replacing it with the clear plastic, because I don't trust it. Alright, so let's see if this guy will kick over. Okay, so I'm busy doing lots of stuff. And so what I got to do today, got a brand new motor. There's a third one. first one didn't run very good, so I sent it back. Well, the main reason I sent it back was it didn't charge, so it's like integral stator, so they sent me a new one, put that in, and after sitting for a while and getting rained on, it got water in the gas and some dirt probably, so that was my fault. So I fixed that, put a different filler in there, sealed up where the fuel sender unit is, and then charged the battery up, tried to start it, no starty, couldn't do anything. So I'm not sure why they sent me a new motor. Been sitting here long enough to get cobwebs on it. They did ask me to crank it over, make sure it wasn't, the starter was bad. I was 99% sure it wasn't, but anyway, I did this whole trick here. Oh, yeah, that's got to go to positive, okay. Yeah, so it cranks over nice. Alright. So, this has been quite a journey to get this Duromax back in order, but it's all finally done. So they sent me a third motor, which I of course did not put in. There's nothing wrong with the motor, but I did add this filter with the drain on it so I can see if there's any moisture in the fluid, in the fuel here, and then drain it out like into there, whatever. So that's the box for motor number 2. This is the box for motor number 3. So I stole the carburetor off of this new motor, so I'm going to bolt that back on and then call up the Duromax people and ask them what they want me to do with all this stuff. So anyway, there was nothing wrong with the carburetor, but it got gunk in it. That was my fault, and I cleaned it out, but I cleaned it out so many times that there's like some little rubber gaskets in there, kind of figure 8 shaped gaskets that, yeah, didn't look like it was supposed to be reused. So anyway, the problem was the ECU, which is this little box right here. As soon as I replaced that ECU, it acted normal again, fired right up. So this is going back. I think, pretty sure they're going to make me send it back. I haven't heard anything. They sent that to me like a month ago. A couple other things I did. I had a fitting on the fuel line because this is 5/16 hose and it goes into a 1/4 inch, so I just made a little adapter for that instead of having a hardware store nightmare. Looks like that. Yeah, so this thing should fire right up now. Let's see if it does. All right, now put that around the middle and clickety clickety click. now that that's done, I can continue building this wall and moving garbage out of the way and yada yada yada. Have to stack all that firewood. Have to so if you let cement pallet, half a pallet full of cement sit on a outside, it turns into not usable anymore. So if anybody thinks doing a dry pour is a good idea, it's not. So I gotta throw this into there, take it to the dumpy place, and lots of stuff happening back here. All new wiring, moved batteries, new exhaust system, lots of pressure and temperature sensors. Yeah, a lot of stuff going on in this thing. I don't think we're going to make it to the Thunder Hill 25-hour race, but we're trying. But everybody's got a life, so everybody's got a wife and a life. Did some TPMS sensors for the race tires, and then the ones that are on the car, we rebalanced those on my fancy balancer here, which is repeatable to about 1 gram, which is pretty darn good. It's really hard to get them, well, it's hard to get them to repeat better than 2 or 3 grams when you take the tire off and put it back on. But that's pretty close for a wheel, so we used this old junky thing to dismount them so we could get the sensors in there. Yeah, anyway, this is a transmission that we got from Pick and Pull. When they show up at the junkyard, we just grab them because they're so hard to find Saab 900s anymore. So we just get them when they're there, and because that's the main. Yeah, this transmission here has no 3rd gear synchro. That's the one that came out of the car from the last Thunderhill race. So the one that's in there is rebuilt, and by rebuilt I mean take it apart and put more used parts in there that are less terrible. It's usually the synchros that are bad, but there's also the lay shaft axle wears out, and so we put a new axle shaft in and kind of updated that to the newer stuff. But anyway, that's the problem with using an outdated engine transmission. Getting parts. It isn't a Miata, so this is a Saab 2-liter. It's actually a B202 with a 204 head on it. So this has been modified. I'll show you. I got one of those back there. To make a B204 head fit on a B203, this is what the interface looks like normally. And then after we're done with it, it looks like that. So the bolts are in the same spot, but it has all this extra sealing is farther away and stuff. So anyway, if you want to put a B204 head on a B202, which is a much better head, it's like kind of the same, but an early model B202 head flows about 150 CFM on the intake and 115 on the exhaust, something like that. And the B204 flows like 230 on the intake, 235, something like that, and 180 on the exhaust. So it's hugely better. I haven't even started rubbing on a 204 yet, but I have a feeling I can get a lot more out of it. But I haven't done any work to. This is basically just a stock B204 head, so that's why we call it a B203. I've never made that, but that's what I'm calling it. So anyway, the next thing I have to get started on is this dyno, because this thing is ready now that it's got the new wiring system and everything in it. We got to throw it on the dyno. this dyno's been installed for a long time, but got these pretty blue boxes. This box here is all wired up, but I don't have any power going to it yet, so I need to. Well, that's the inverter to run the. It has a, I think it's like a 2 horsepower motor that runs the roller. So if you want to like do a speed calibration or whatever, you don't need the car running. You could just get that motoring on its own. So I got to get this thing wired up, get some power to it, and then get it all configured. Yourdyno.com. So this is the box to excite the eddy current, and then that's the data acquisition and control that controls it. So it's all kind of, it's the same company that makes that and that. So these chassis dynos are, as of late, are fairly easy to get your hands on for cheap, because the smog rules require different. It's a different process, so it needs a different piece of equipment to do it. So all these old ones are kind of obsolete. So all smog shops that have these have to get rid of them and buy a new one. So anyway, I picked this thing up for, I don't know, it was $1,400 or something like that. Plus I had to move it and make a spot for it in here and whatever. But as of yet, the only thing that's rolled on it is Team Apathy people. Anyway, one thing at a time. Maybe I'll do this next, now that the weather is beautiful. Thanks for watching. If you like this content and want more, subscribe, like, and share.